Welcome to Heaven Forbid Your Movie Make Money, the podcast where we talk about how to help your independent films make money, because that shouldn't be such a crazy proposition. So today I'm Abby. I'm the content and social media manager for Trademark Films and an independent filmmaker. I'm here with Daniel, my co-host.
Hi, I am also an independent filmmaker, and I am the video production manager here at Trademark Films.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit. We talk a lot about, and in previous episodes we have a lot about independent films and how we love independent films, and like that's kind of the why of everything we do, you know, is like we want to be there for the little guys. So we are just going to talk more today about why we love movies, why we love independent movies, and dive into that.
Like how important independent film is.
Yeah.
Independent films are so important to the filmmaking industry for a couple of reasons, but I think most importantly, it is the way big ideas can be told in small ways.
Okay, I love that.
And it's a way for variety.
Yeah.
Unconventional storytelling. Like, if every single movie you go and watch is a $300 million superhero blockbuster, which is a random example for no specific reason, it just becomes noise.
That's so true.
The quality of the film does not matter as much as your experience watching the film. Mm-hmm. And so while I am the first, or will be the first, to defend high spectacle movies, I personally fall into the Sam Raimi camp of filmmaker, or philosophies of filmmaking, where if you've made a boring picture, you've committed a crime. You don't have to have crazy action sequences or a $300 million budget to not bore your audience.
That is so true.
And it's ways for you to learn about filmmaking, find your voice as a filmmaker, to practice, and to make movies, to tell your stories.
Yeah.
It's independent films are important, and you should support them. Support independent films. Support independent filmmakers. Important.
Exactly. We're just sorry. Where'd you put the soapbox? We can get it out. Just need to find that in the supply closet.
I don't have a soapbox. I have an apple box, though.
Yeah, that's right. Let me just get on my apple box for a minute.
Yeah.
You know what I always think of, like, when we talk about, you know, why independent films are important, and kind of like, why is it important for people who aren't the mainstream, super popular, big budget people to make movies? So my mom, for background, is an artist. She paints oils, and like growing up, we'd always like, you know, have paintings on our walls. We'd always go to the art museums, and so I've seen lots of art museums in my life. We spend a lot of time. If there's a Monet exhibit, like, we are there. She loves Monet. Cool. And I love Monet too, like, you know, kind of have grown this love for him. So, but one thing that has always stuck out to me about Monet is how, when he was starting out, because he's very like loose, impressionistic styles, and he would take basically everybody in the salons, I think I'm saying that wrong, but like in these, you know, the people who knew, the critics in France, the ones who had the correct taste in paintings, were like, these are garbage. Why would we want to see your hay bales painted at different times of the day? Why do we want to see your lily gardens? Like, this is crap. This is not what art is. And so like, this is bad art. Because they wanted to see like scenes of wars and like important events and important figures. And but like, here we are all these years later, and he is seen as one of the most influential and one of the best artists ever. And just because I think of that in terms of independent filmmaking, because just because it's not like this big budget, big audience, like just because you don't have all the film critics watching you and drooling over your movie, doesn't mean it's not worth making, you know, and doesn't mean it's still not something that some people are going to appreciate and some people are going to love. And you don't know like how well, maybe it's, you know, in 10 years, people are going to like find it and go crazy about it. Like, I think it's just like, it is worth taking time to make your movie, even if it's not exactly what everybody is saying is the next big thing. Like,
For sure.
yeah, I guess it's all about the why you make the movie and not necessarily the result.
No, I love that. And that's cool that you have those experiences.
Thanks. Love me some Monet.
I need to go to more art museums too now. You're making me think about it. Yeah, it's... I think about the reasons why I became a filmmaker, or why I wanted to become a filmmaker. I actually, maybe we back up just a little bit, like, just so that people have an understanding of, like, what we mean when we say independent films.
Oh, totally.
So, brief history brought to you by Daniel. In Hollywood, there is the studio system. And the studio system controls most of the productions. In that, like, MGM, I kind of like MGM now. MGM's owned by Amazon. Yeah, weird. So, like, Warner Brothers, Disney, Paramount, like these big name studios that have been around for a century or more at this point now, right? When they make a film, it is in a very particular way to maximize profits, mitigate losses. Like, if Disney makes a Marvel superhero movie, that is going to have a massive budget, massive marketing campaigns, get huge actors. It's going to be broadcast all over the world in dozens of different languages. It's going to have backing behind it to make it successful.
Yeah.
In a way. Independent films are films independent of that are made outside of that studio system.
Yeah.
Either self-funded films, films that have found funding. There are independent film studios like, A24. Those kind of, like, hundreds and hundreds of independent film studios. We were an independent film studio for several years, and continue to be one, just in a lesser capacity. We outside of the studio system.
Yeah.
So they're not going to have as large of budgets.
Yeah.
Maybe decent sized budgets, small budgets. As an independent filmmaker, I have made feature length movies for less than $1,000.
Right on.
It's not good, and you will never see it.
But it's a feature-length movie.
It's a feature-length movie, like, it still happens. It's a great learning experience. No one's ever going to see it. I hope it burns. And so, like, that's kind of what we mean by independent films, or, like, films mostly of a pretty low budget. A good threshold that people have is, like, 30 million and less is a lot of, like, independent theatrical movies, but also stuff made for $1,000 or less. Like, as long as it is made outside of the studio system, it is considered an independent film. Anything above, like, that $30 million threshold, you're starting to get, and that's just a decent number. I don't know if that's, like, in talking with people, 30 million was kind of the consensus of, okay, yeah, that you're starting to get to a good size budget.
Yeah.
For a Hollywood movie, for a movie that is planning on going to theaters, right? But for reference, plenty of movies go to theaters with less than that.
Yeah.
Blumhouse makes movies for, like, less than 10 million.
That
typically.
is wild.
Right?
Yeah.
But they still get big actors, and there's a whole slew of reasons why they do that and why they're successful doing that. Like, they made the newest Insidious movie for, I want to say, $16 million. And it's one of their largest budget movies.
Whoa, okay.
It made 3 times that opening weekend.
Right on.
Right? Which, in comparison, if you compare that to, like, say, The Flash. The Flash had a budget of $220 million, and it made $130 million opening weekend.
Okay. Yeah, so that's...
And The Flash is a flop. It lost money
Yeah.
for the studio versus one that was $16 million that made 4 times its budget. Still made less at the movie theaters than The Flash did, but was profitable for the filmmaker.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a whole myriad of ways that can happen or not happen, you know? Just as many movies that get made and are successful, twice as many get made and are unsuccessful. 4 times as many, 10 times as many are made or are unsuccessful by Hollywood box office standards.
Totally.
Right? And when I think of the reasons why I became an independent filmmaker, or why I became a filmmaker in general, was because I felt like I had stories that I wanted to tell.
Oh, yeah.
That I had something to say.
Totally.
I feel like that's the same for most filmmakers. For most people who consider themselves filmmakers. Right?
Totally, yeah. It's very based on, like, you have this unique perspective, and I mean, I feel like you don't go into it without believing that you can bring something to this industry.
For
you
sure,
know?
yeah.
And, like, no one's like, I am going to replicate all of the Marvel movies and it's going to be amazing, you know? Like, they're like, I have this idea and I'm going to add this little spark.
A little while ago, I stumbled upon a quote, and I don't know if it's actually from David Lynch, but it's credited to him, so I'm going to say it is, where he said, a lot of writers say that every story has been told. And sure it has, but not by you.
That is such a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
You have a unique perspective. You have something that you can say.
Yeah. Do you remember in, like, high school English classes and even college, they talk about, like, all the different archetypes in, like, stories? Like, you've got the hero's journey, you know?
Yeah.
And if you analyze all these different stories, everything's a hero's journey. Like,
Right.
I love those memes where they're like, oh, a young orphan boy with magic powers, like, has an old man mentor, and it's like, is this Harry Potter or is this Star Wars? You know, like, it's the same story, but with a different storyteller and with all these different perspectives and like takeaways from it. Like, they're really, like, you can boil all stories down to maybe a few different formats, but it's like, those are the bones, and it's what you put on top of that gives it life, and that's, like, what you bring to it, you know?
For sure, yeah. And this might be a little bit of a tangent, but, like, along those same lines, one of the things that bugs me a little bit is the criticism that such and such movie is formulaic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When I hear that, and this is maybe me being pedantic, which, come at me. Like, it's when someone says it's formulaic, what they mean by that is really, I wasn't surprised by the movie. Nothing surprised me. There is nothing wrong with being formulaic.
Yeah.
Formulas exist for a reason. Things like the hero's journey are a great way of visualizing your story in as bare bones of way as possible to then build the unique things on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when someone says, oh, I didn't like that movie because it was formulaic, well, then you're obviously, I don't want to say you're obviously, because art is subjective. It's fine. I don't feel like that's an actual criticism.
Oh, totally.
And it's a way that I found for people to talk about films and say, I didn't like this film because it was formulaic, when they didn't like it for a myriad of other reasons, but they don't have the vocabulary to discuss that.
Oh,
and that's
totally.
not really, like, I'm somebody who believes that media literacy is important for everyone.
Oh, totally.
And having that vocabulary is important, and figuring out why you like something or dislike something is important. When people talk about the new Marvel movies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, or one criticism with The Force Awakens, Star Wars The Force Awakens. I'll come back to Star Wars a lot because it's impacted me in a weird way. The main criticism people had was that it was Star Wars, A New Hope, but gender swapped, or you know, big criticism at the time was made woke or whatever, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It's just that Star Wars is such a quintessential example of the hero's journey that anything resembling the hero's journey that also has lightsabers in it, people are going to be like, oh, that's just a remake of the fourth one, right?
That's actually a really good point.
And so they're like, I don't like it because it's just the same formula. It's so formulaic, right? And that's not really the reason why you didn't like it. And the reasons why you didn't like it might be valid, might be dumb, but you can't use formula as a critique.
I think that's totally valid. It should be more of an observation than a critique. Yeah. And
like, what kind of formula are you using? Are you using the rags to riches? Like, depending on who you ask, there are 3 stories. There's only one story. There's 12 different kinds of stories.
Yeah.
Like, there's rags to riches, or fall of a hero, Greek tragedy. Well, like, so many different types of stories, depending on who you ask and depending on why you're asking those questions.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's about entertaining the audience in a way.
Yeah.
Again, I fall into the Sam Raimi. I don't know if that's the right conclusion to come to, but I fall into the Sam Raimi school of, if you've made a boring picture, you've committed a crime.
I love that. I love that.
And I've made plenty of boring stuff. It's harder than it looks.
Straight to jail.
Straight to jail.
Straight to jail. Yeah.
So. And I feel like nobody sets out to make something boring.
No.
Nobody sets out to make something that people won't enjoy.
Yeah. Like, there are some movies that I love, and I feel like I have to, when I show people them, like, I've stopped showing them to certain people because I'm like, you're not going to love this. It's going to be awful. When we watch, like, I don't know, like a 2-hour, like, I love Wes Anderson.
Oh, yeah.
And I have shown it to like different Wes Anderson movies to people who are like, okay, I didn't really like it. I didn't really get it. And I'm like, but look at all this, like, you know, and you know, it's just like, to each their own. And I don't know, it is so subjective. And if you don't like it, it wasn't made for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to know that that's okay.
Absolutely.
Not every film is going to be made for you.
Yep.
And that's okay. A couple quick examples of this that I have personally.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, okay. I actually have not seen it, but I've seen the first Blade Runner.
You haven't seen the first Blade Runner?
I haven't seen 2049.
The aesthetics are very similar.
Okay. Conflicts
are very similar. Completely different filmmaking experience.
Oh, okay.
Denis Villeneuve said that he's like, I just made the most expensive student art house film ever.
Nice. Okay.
When he made Blade Runner 2049. Which, I mean, why would you hire him if that wasn't what you were wanting? But people were really mad when 2049 came. Like, I don't want to say everyone, because one, it's a fantastic film. So even if it's not what you're expecting, you also come away from it like, oh, yeah, that was pretty good, I guess. But like, I remember there was some discourse about it being like, you know, just online discourse, not real discourse, online discourse, totally. About it, like, oh, it didn't have enough, you know, like, real action, or it wasn't great continuation of the Blade Runner story or whatever, right? And it's like, guys, this movie wasn't for you then.
Yeah.
Same with, like, Star Wars The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. Again, I love that movie, but it caused so many people to go just crazy because they were like, this isn't the Star Wars that I wanted. It's like, okay, it's not for you then.
Yeah. I felt like that with Drive, one with Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
And like, someone was like, oh, you've got to watch this. It's such a good movie. And then I watched it, and I, like, since I probably have to watch it again and think about it a little bit more, but like just my first interaction with the movie was like, I did not enjoy that. Like, I just thought it was too moody, too dark, and just I was like, where's the plot? I just see violence, you know? Like, I just didn't really like it. That's not to say though, like, my friends who I watched it with, they were like, I love this because this, like, they had gone so deep and they really loved this movie. And I'm like, okay, who am I to say this is a bad movie? Because it's not. Like, it's a very well received movie and people really love it. And just because it's not, like, it was definitely not made for me. Like, I am not the target audience.
And that's okay.
And that's okay, because some of the movies that I love, like, they are not the target audience for that, you know? Like, I love this super cheesy movie that takes place in Ireland with, like, Emily Blunt and Jamie Dornan, and I love it. And, like, the people, like my friend who loves Drive, would absolutely hate it. But it was not made for them.
I know which movie you're talking about with Emily Blunt and Jamie Dornan. Don't tell me.
Okay.
I know, I have seen it. I just can't remember what the title was.
It's okay. I think it's slept on. It was like 2020 and like nothing came out in theaters, you know?
And it's just like, it's like such a cute little story.
It just
about
like
their relationship. And like, it's so cute. I can't remember, what's it called again?
Wild Mountain Time.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh man.
It makes me want to go like live in Ireland and herd sheep all day.
Seriously though,
yep.
Right?
That's where the obsession started.
Or I guess, what are your thoughts? Why should audiences care about independent films?
Oh, honestly,
like not filmmakers, like the audience.
Yeah. In my mind, it's like, I feel like it's the same reason you should care about like supporting local businesses. Like, it's Christmas.
For sure.
I love shopping at local markets to get Christmas presents because I'm like, I want to support the artist that lives next door rather than like Amazon, right? Like,
for sure. Yeah.
And you know, there are some things you can't get, but I think that's like one thing that's important to me. And I feel like it's the same thing with independent filmmakers. Like, support the arts, support the people who are contributing something. Like, there's a value that's not just monetary, you know? And I think when you support independent films, when you go out and watch their movies, that's kind of what that's what you're giving back. Like, you're giving back the opportunity to create art and to pursue passion. And I feel like even if, you know, you're not supporting the biggest blockbuster of the century, you are still putting your time and your money into a very worthwhile thing. And also, if I can add something, I think too, like, you touched on this at the beginning, but like, there is, you know, this like diversity and newness that comes from independent films, like things that maybe the big studios aren't really going to care about, but that are still important. And I just think like you're going to get so many more voices, so many more perspectives in these like smaller budget, independent films that like probably won't make it to the big screen, but that are absolutely worth seeing. Like,
for sure.
And that's one thing that like has always drawn me to documentaries is I feel like, you know, there are these stories of just like very normal, regular lives, but there's, you know, just this streak of extraordinary in that. And I feel like those stories are the ones that mean the most to me and the ones that I want to tell and that I want to watch. And there are things that often like Disney's not going to care about this, you know, like, but somebody will. And I think enough people will want to see this like very on the surface mundane story, but that actually has like this beauty in the regularity of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And told in your unique way.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's such a unique experience making a film. And everything is so unique to those filmmakers.
Totally.
And audiences should care because, like you said, it's supporting the filmmaking equivalent of local artists. It's supporting, you know, people rather than corporations, which all for, you know, it broadens horizons. It's educational, both on a literal and emotional level. Right? It allows for more unique stories to be told. And I think about the myriad of independent films or low budget films that have impacted me, you know?
Absolutely.
And there are very few massive blockbuster films that have impacted me as much as like low budget independent films, right? And again, I'll be the first to admit that I love a good spectacle movie. One of my favorite movies ever is Pacific Rim.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And terrible acting, silly story, but man, I get to see giant robots punch monsters. I am here for it, right? But I think of like low budget independent films, movies like Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Right. I really, really love and enjoy a movie called A Ghost Story.
Okay. I have not heard of it.
So yeah, it's an A24 film, but like a one of their earlier films. It is profoundly affecting in the way it tells its story.
I will add that to my list.
A very unique way of telling its story. I love movies like, honestly, the two. I know that this might seem self-serving, but a couple of our movies that I really love. I love Ninja Baby.
Love Ninja Baby.
Powers is a very fun, interesting documentary with fun characters, fun people, very well made. Won a bunch of awards at film festivals, right?
Yeah, packs a punch.
And like those movies affect me. They're not just entertaining, they're impactful.
Absolutely. Ninja Baby like made me think for so long, and like I still come back to it and I'm like, I want to show this movie to somebody because I know they would appreciate it, and like the themes and stuff like that. Like, yeah.
I am very much of the mindset and of the thought process that the media that we consume affects us.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right? And so if you are just watching and experiencing big budget movies, tentpole movies, blockbusters, while they have their place, if that's all you consume, and to be fair, most of them are kind of just noise. I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah, no, totally.
There are very many talented people that work on these movies, hundreds and thousands of talented people that work on these movies that are making a living as filmmakers. That's fantastic. And I want to support them as well. Maybe not necessarily the corporations, but the people, right? And they do a fantastic job with the job that they're given, and that's great. But they're not personal stories.
Totally. Yeah.
As much as they could be. Versus a movie like I know you love Little Women.
I love Little Women, yes.
Like, while that is still a theatrical movie, it's still kind of an independent film, and it's very spirited as an independent film.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's an effectual movie, and it's a movie that affects you in a profound way.
Totally.
Makes you think about it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I do think that there needs to be more media literacy out there.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I will die on that hill. Like,
right.
I would like go back to school to get like a master's on media literacy or something. Like, I just think it's so interesting, and like the way media affects us, like,
right.
Whew, crazy.
And I think it's important as filmmakers to also support independent films.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Because why would you expect why would you expect someone else to watch your movie if you don't, as an independent filmmaker, if you yourself don't watch other independent films?
Honestly, yes. Like, you're all there in the trenches together. Like, build each other up, support each other. Like, you are all kind of in this very unique position. And so you have this unique empathy and this unique perspective to be able to, like, I don't know, support and even like give feedback. Like,
for sure.
I just think artists supporting artists, filmmakers supporting filmmakers, like,
right.
I think, yeah.
And you're in a good position to appreciate the stories.
Yeah.
The very personal stories that are told.
Totally.
In these independent films, right?
I think having been there yourself and like being a storyteller yourself, that gives you a very unique way of like receiving stories, you know, like
Yeah.
you're going to have these different perspectives on like how the characters were created and where, you know, the filmmaker was coming from. And I think that makes you a really good audience member. Like you're just kind of trained to have that critical thought. Whereas like,
Sure.
some people might just, a lot of people like you go to the theaters because you want to enjoy the movie, and that's great. That's like wonderful.
Totally.
And that is, you know, like you said, it should be entertaining. It should be like intriguing and interesting. But yeah, it's the difference between showing your masterpiece of a painting, this thing that you've worked on for years, to people who are just like, oh, that's beautiful, I love it. Whereas you show it to another artist and they're like, oh my goodness, your brush strokes here are blowing my mind. This use of color right here, the way you showed the light, like that's where you're going to get this amazing feedback. The one that really, really feels, I guess, like comes from a different place and is maybe a little bit more meaningful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, I would encourage everyone to watch more independent films. I know that there's, like, again, we're based out of Utah, and I know that there's at least 2 independent film theaters in Salt Lake, in the Salt Lake area. I know that there's several more around as well. If you get a chance to go to an independent film screening, please do.
Totally.
It might not change your life, but it might. I don't know. And if you have any life-changing movies that you want people to see, send them our way. We're more than happy to take a look at them. We get submissions all the time for amazing, affecting movies.
Yes.
And even if it's not your masterpiece, even if your best is yet to come, we still want to see it, you know?
We're here for all parts of the journey.
Oh, yeah.
Know? Yeah.
And you will never see any of my stuff that I've done. So, you know what? I'm happy to take a look at yours. So, thank you guys. Are we good to close out?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys so much for watching. We appreciate you staying on this journey with us and hearing about our experiences as filmmakers. And we want to definitely help you guys along your way. If you have any submissions, feel free to submit them on our website. But also stick around and see any of our other podcast episodes. They come out every other week here at Heaven Forbid Your Movie Make Money, where our goal is to help you distribute and make money on your film. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.